Let's discuss the specimen question paper for ICSE 2024 examination. I'm going to take you through these instructions briefly first. You know that the paper is for 80 marks, time allowed is 2 hours, and you will get first 15 minutes to read the paper, but you will not be allowed to write anything here. These 15 minutes, you should make sure that you read the whole paper carefully and specially choose these 4 questions wisely. Don't waste this time at all. Also note that in section A, you have to attempt all questions. There is no choice. And make sure that you're not wasting time in copying the question. Do not copy the question. You just write the correct answers. So let us start. Now, the first question says that the dash has to decide the reward for each factor of production. By now, if you have prepared for the board exam, I think this is one of the most easiest question for you. So you know this is not organizer worker. We already know the direct answer. That is, the entrepreneur has to decide the reward for each factor of production. Second question is capital expenditure is dash in nature. Now, when you do this public expenditure chapter, you must be coming across different types of expenditure. Revenue expenditure, capital expenditure, and we learn about the difference between revenue expenditure and capital expenditure is that revenue expenditure is recurring in nature. It is daily basis. It is some kind of expenditure which the government has to incur regularly. But capital expenditure is non-recurring in nature. These points of positive, persuasive are something irrelevant here. So basically the answer is capital expenditure is non-recurring in nature. The third question is, as a result of rise in consumers' income, the demand curve for coarse grain means it's an inferior good, will shift or move. So we need to look at whether the demand curve will shift or move in this case. So just plot a simple diagram. The demand curve is always between price and quantity demanded. Here it is quantity demanded of coarse grain. There is a demand curve given to you. Now they are asking us that as a result of rise in consumers' income, it means there's a factor other than price which is affecting the demand for this commodity. Now, when that happens, we always look at the shift in the demand curve and not movement. Price causes movement along the demand curve. Any factor other than price in this diagram, in this graph, will cause the demand curve to shift. Now, when there is rise in consumers' income, it means that consumer is now going to shift to another product because they can afford a better product than coarse grain. So the demand curve will shift to the left. So this is your original, this would be a new demand curve. So the option D would be the correct one. The demand curve will shift to the left. Next question is, there was difficulty in future payments under barter system due to lack of visibility, lack of common measure of value, lack of storage system, lack of standard of deferred payments. Now these are all difficulties of barter system. Now when you come across standard of deferred payments, it talks about future payments, meaning when we were exchanging goods during barter system, it was not possible to assess the correct value in the future to be paid to a person back. So if I am loaning something to some good to another person, how to make sure that I am getting something what I am giving today equivalent to that in the future. So that was a difficulty of barter system. So this is basically fourth one, lack of standard of deferred. Deferred means future payments. Always remember that. So when we say there was difficulty in future payments under barter system, we are talking about lack of standard of deferred payments. Nowadays what we do, we can easily add the value of interest to our money and it becomes easier. So we are able to remove the difficulty of barter system through money. Next question is, jute industry is an example of dash division of labor. Now, when we talk about these type of industries, these industries are usually located in a particular region. They are abundantly available in that particular region, and that is why those industries are more common. So when a region specializes in the production of a commodity, then we call it a geographical division of labor. For example, jute industry in West Bengal. So we know that the answer to this question would be B, geographical based. Now let's look at another question. This is, if you look at this picture, what is this picture telling you? All types of natural resources available in the nature. Yes. So what is land? If we look at land as a factor of production, it includes all resources which are available free of cost to human beings. The only condition in economics is that we should be able to regulate them. So man should be able to regulate them. So when we look at this depiction, the specific factor of production would be land. It's not capital, it's not labor, it's not entrepreneur. Okay, now let's discuss the seventh question. Seventh question is that dash market has one seller and many buyers. Now, when you are talking about one seller and many buyers, this is a case of monopoly. We know that in case of monopoly, there is one seller and many buyers. For example, railways in India, you have government as the seller. So when you are doing different market structures, please make sure that you are learning all the different types of markets, their definitions and features very well. The next question is, if you make investments in insurance or mutual funds, then it will be called a dash type of capital. Now, when we talk about investments in insurance or mutual funds, it means we are talking about financial capital. We are talking about shares. We are talking about investment of money. So that will be your financial capital. This is financial type of capital. So when you're doing your factors of production chapter, you need to be clear about this. Next question is, Miss Sakshi, an economics teacher, was explaining the concept of minimum percentage of the total deposits to be kept by any commercial bank with the central bank of the country as per norms prevailing in the country. Now, from the following, choose the correct alternative which specifies towards the concept explained by her. Now, you will come across these ratios: cash reserve ratio, repo rate, bank rate, statutory liquidity ratio. Please make sure that you are learning them well, you are learning the different definitions, you understand the concept well. So when you are learning these ratios, these are all different quantitative methods of credit control. You will come across cash reserve ratio. Now we are talking about cash reserve ratio here. This is the minimum percentage of the total deposits which every commercial bank needs to keep with the central bank of the country. Repo rate, bank rate, statutory liquidity ratio are other types of ratios. Statutory liquidity ratio is which the bank has to keep with themselves. Repo rate is totally different. And your bank rate is when the commercial banks are borrowing from the central bank. So please make sure that you are doing these differences very carefully when you are learning these different methods of quantitative control. Next question is this 10th question. This refers to the legal definition of money. Now you will learn Crowther's definition of money, legal definition of money. Basically, legal definition of money says money is what the law says money is. So that is your legal definition. Whatever the law of the country says that this is money, that is considered as legal definition of money. So when you look at these four options, first one says anything that generally acts as money. Now anything generally cannot act as money. Yes, we cannot use any paper or anything as money. Second option is money are those things which are used as a medium of exchange. Now those things means we are talking actually about barter system here. C is anything declared by the government as money is called money. Now this is close to what legal definition of money says, that money is what the law says money is. So this is your correct answer. Because the fourth one is money consists of those things which have a high degree of portability. Now this is money, this is just one type of feature of money, the D part, but it's not exactly the whole thing about money. So please make sure that when you are getting these type of detailed questions in the exam, you are paying attention to each and every sentence, read it carefully, don't be in a hurry. Next question is, which factor out of the following serves as the primary source of consumption? Now, meaning consumption means people who are going to consume goods. So out of this, again, it's a very simple question, but don't make any mistakes. So which factor out of the following, if you remember your circular flow of income from 9th standard? So you must have done households and firms. That is your two sector model. Yes, you are talking about that they provide service to the firms, households provide service to the firms, and firms pay these households wages, and firms produce goods and services for which households pay money to the firms. So who is the primary source of consumption here? Practically your labor. Labor is providing services to the firms, and as well as they are the ones who are going to consume the products made by these firms. So the answer is labor. Out of this, labor acts as the primary source of consumption. Next question is, which of the following is a determinant of market demand? Now, when you are doing market demand, always remember that market demand and individual demand factors are different. Individual demand is factors which can influence the demand of individual consumers. Market demand is all the consumers together. So when we are talking about market demand, now taste and preferences, individual demand factor. Income of the consumer is individual demand factor. Consumer credit facility, so even if the loans are getting cheaper or something like costlier, cost of borrowing is higher, then also it's up to each individual consumer how they are going to react to it. It depends on whether they want to buy a good or not. But the last one is government policy. Government policies are mostly related to taxation and subsidies. So when we talk about market demand, this is a factor which will determine the market, which can influence the market demand easily. So I hope this is clear that why government policy is a determinant of market demand and not the others. 13th question is quite simple if you know the features and definition well. So in perfect competition, the sellers are selling identical or homogeneous products. So we know identical products are sold in perfect competition. You have unique product being sold in monopoly. And your different products, not exactly different, it's actually differentiated products which are slightly different from each other, which are close substitutes still of each other, like shampoos, soaps. That time we are talking about monopolistic competition. Okay, so here the answer is identical. 14th question is, during barter exchange, the rate of exchange was arbitrarily fixed. Now this resulted from which problem? So obviously it's not D, because deferred payment, I told you it's more about future payments. Storing wealth is also not the thing which is causing this. Mainly it's your A, lack of common measure of value, because when we are taking a product to be exchanged for other goods, how to assess the value of that product in comparison to what we will get in exchange. So when we are, how to determine that how much is my good worth in terms of other goods available in the barter market. So how to assess that value? So there was no common measure of value, which is now in terms of money we are able to do much easier. Now let's discuss the 15th question. 15th question says that Indian farmers are an example of dash type of labor. Now always remember, division of labor topic is very important. You will find 2-3 odd questions they will ask you somewhere or there. So please pay attention to that. Now when you are talking about division of labor, it refers to what? It's a specialization is in any work. Yes. So when we are talking about types of this labor, you have product based, process based, geographical. Now out of that, When we talk about Indian farmers come under product-based division of labor. Why? When a person specializes in the production of a particular commodity or service, it is called as product-based division of labor. It is also known as simple division of labor. So don't get confused if you get options like simple, complex, product. So you should know that process and complex are same, product and simple are same. Okay, so for example, you have farmers, carpenters, blacksmith, cobbler, they all come under product based division of labor. So when you are doing this topic, I urge you to pay attention because you will usually find one or two odd questions on division of labor, surely. Okay, next question is, a shirt costing rupees 300 represents dash function of money. Now we know that whatever were the problems of the barter system, they become the function of money. So whatever we could not do with barter system, we are able to do it as a function of money. So when we are talking about a shirt costing rupees 300, it means we are able to measure the value of that shirt. Isn't it so? Your first option is the answer for 16th question. Now these are 16 questions, 1 markers. Yes, now we have 40 mark of paper, which is section A, which is compulsory. You cannot leave any question, even in question 2, 3 and 4. Okay, so now let's go to question 2. Now here you note that these are 2 markers. Each of these option is 2 markers. And now here is where they are going to test your knowledge, your definitions, how much conceptual understanding you have. Yes, so the first question is, give any 2 question 2, first part, give any 2 examples of commercial revenue. Now they have just asked you the examples, 2 marks. First of all, what are commercial revenues? Revenue from public enterprises by selling goods and services. They are also known as price. So when you do your public revenue chapter, please pay attention to different types of revenues. Now, what kind of revenue government earns through public enterprises? This could be like through post office, postage, tolls they charge us. Yes, if we borrow from the government, the interest we pay, or we are paying for electricity bill, railway fares and freight, irrigation charges, all these are commercial revenues. You can list any 2 out of these. Any 2 out of this will come under this. Okay, so for example, let's say postage. Nowadays, though, this is a very vague example because we don't use these facilities much. Tolls you pay or railway fare you pay. So any of these 2 you can list them. Next question is, what does consumer awareness mean? Now this is another definition which you will come across many past papers. So again, pay attention to this definition. Consumer awareness is basically consumers' consciousness or awareness towards their own rights and duties. Now, these are keywords. They will be looking for these in the answer. So, if you are missing out on these keywords, you tend to lose marks. You can also go to another video which I have prepared specially for ICSE 10 Economics exam preparation, and where I have picked few last year questions. There also you will come across this question, and there also I have explained that what all they are looking for. So there are 2 questions which I want you to pay attention specifically, this one and this one. You will find in many question papers, past question papers. So pay attention to them. And division of labor. So you will come across division of labor in various forms. Okay. So consumer awareness, consumer's consciousness towards his or her rights or duties and protection is called consumer awareness. They want complete definition. Third question is, specialization of labor helps the producers in their productive activities and is also beneficial to the workers. So now they are asking us to give 2 examples to give 2 reasons to prove this statement. Now, if you notice the statement specialization of labor means they're asking us about division of labor, help the producers and is also beneficial to the workers. So I would suggest that you give one advantage to the producer and one advantage to the worker due to division of labor. Now, when we talk about producer, it means they are able to lead to less cost of production, because with division of labor your cost of production reduces, because the worker becomes efficient in their work. There could be right man at the right job because they are doing the same repetitive task daily again and again. They become efficient in that, which leads to lower cost of production for the producer. Explain this sentence, okay? Explain this reason. That is what they want from you. Second is how it can be beneficial to the worker. Now, repetitive tasks can increase efficiency in labor, and this helps for the worker also in mobility. So they can actually move from one place to another, one job to another job easily, because they have become skilled in that job. So many other producers might be also willing to hire them. Yes. So you can give these two examples, explain the reasons, short, brief, concise. So maybe you don't need to write five lines for this. You can just give one reason for how it is beneficial to the producer, but explain that reason. So in these type of questions, especially 2 markers or any kind of explanation in economics, you need to justify. There should be a logical derivation of what you are trying to say. The keywords for definitions and the logical sense of your answer should be clear to the teacher. It could be just in one line. Don't beat around the bush, don't ramble. Okay. Next question is explain the meaning of overdraft facility. This question also I have seen a lot in past papers. This is again a tricky question because students don't tend to pay attention. Now, what is overdraft facility? This is basically allowed to the people who maintain a current account. Now, here the borrower can overdraw more than the amount available in his account. So, like you have credit cards, you have a limit. Even if you have zero balance, you can withdraw amount. Yes. So, the excess amount withdrawn, you need to repay back. Now, interest rate, what the bank charges, is usually charged only on the amount overdrawn. Okay, so this is another question I have discussed in my other video. If you go through that video, you will find that what the board is expecting. I have told you that also. Okay, so these are few things, like these are few questions I feel, topics which you should pay attention to. Now let's discuss the third question. The third question, first part, is define the term demand. Now this is another important question you can expect. Now when you're doing demand, make sure that you pay attention to whether they are asking you law of demand or are they asking you just demand. Okay, because both the definitions are different. Now when we talk about just define the term demand, it means we need to talk about that demand is the quantity of a product that a consumer is willing and able to buy, willing and able to buy at a given price at a given time. This is what is expected at a given price and at a given time. They are not asking law of demand here. Some children make this mistake, so make sure that you don't repeat it. Okay, so demand is that the quantity of a product that a consumer is willing and able to buy at a given price at a given time. Next question is, why is capital subject to depreciation? Now, this is a good question. This is something like application. So, if you understand the concept of capital and depreciation, now here don't just write what is depreciation. You have to explain that why is capital subject to depreciation. So, the capital goods, like you have plant and machinery, they are, when in use, they tend to wear out due to wear and tear or obsolescence. And these assets need to be replaced after few years. Yes, we know that every machinery needs to be replaced after few years, but these are costly assets, very costly for the business. So what does the producer do? The producer keeps away some fund known as depreciation fund, which will act like a saving in the name of that particular asset and which can be used to replace the machinery after few years. Okay, so you need to give this whole thing that the capital goods, they tend to wear out, and because of that they need to be replaced after few years. This is a costly thing for the producer, so immediately getting money after 10 years might be difficult for him. So what he does is he charges against a depreciation fund in his profit and loss account actually. So he charges amount every year in the name of that asset, saying that this is depreciation of the asset, and that is like a saving for the producer, and that those savings he can use to buy the asset after, buy the same machinery when he needs to replace that machinery. I hope this is clear. I know this is a little tricky, but this is given in your textbooks. If you read it carefully, you will get it. Okay, next question is, how is fixed deposit different from saving deposit? You will come across 4 types of deposit in your chapter on commercial banks. Pay attention to those 4, they are quite important. So how is fixed deposit different from saving deposit? The main difference is that fixed deposits carry high rate of interest, saving deposit carry low rate of interest. And the second important difference you can give is that fixed deposits, they do not enjoy checkable facility. You cannot write a check against a fixed deposit, but you can write a check, you have a checkable facility against a saving deposit, though there could be some restrictions on the amount you can withdraw at a time. Okay, so these are 2 main, but another third feature could be that, another difference could be that fixed deposit is for a fixed period of time. You put certain amount in the bank, and for a fixed period of time you have it there, you cannot withdraw it before that time limit. Saving deposit, you can withdraw on a daily basis even. Okay, so but I believe the first 2 are more important. Then your next question is picture 1 and picture 2, where they have asked us to analyze the visual elements and identify the standardization mark respectively as per the consumer protection measure. So obviously when you're doing this chapter, please pay attention to the standardization marks, and you should know them, you should be able to identify them on the products. The first one is, the first picture is, though I cannot see it very clearly on this page, but it is eco mark, and in this you have ag mark. Okay, so just you have to name them, you get 2 marks. So picture 1, it's eco mark, picture 2, it's ag mark. Question 4, first part, how does net debt differ from gross debt? Now this is from public debt chapter. This can be a bit confusing for you, so please pay attention when you're preparing this. So gross debt is the sum of all debts for the government, and net debt is the balance amount of debt after exclusion of sinking fund or other assets meant for repayment of loans. So now if you would have read the chapter carefully, you will notice that we come across the term sinking fund also. So sinking fund is practically the government keeps aside like depreciation. Companies keep, similarly sinking fund you can think of as a fund which is kept by the government to repay the loans when they have to repay the interest and principal amount. So they keep on keeping some money aside in the name of sinking fund. Now net debt would be the total debt minus the financial assets or the cash or sinking fund amount which the government has with them. So net debt would be the remaining amount what government needs to gather from somewhere. Okay, so practically this is the main difference. So when you are writing this, pay attention to the key words again here. So gross government debt is total amount of debt that a government has accumulated. It could be including both internal and external debt. Total financial liability of the government is gross debt. Net debt would be difference between a government's gross debt and its financial assets. So net debt is basically gross debt minus the value of the government's financial assets. Okay, so whatever they own in terms of financial asset, when you subtract that from gross debt, that becomes your net debt. Okay, so it can be cash, investment, loans. So basically this gives you a better idea of government's financial position. Next question is explain the term elasticity of demand. This is another important question you will come across either in descriptive questions or in short answers. Okay, so term elasticity of demand is practically elasticity of demand measures the responsiveness of change in quantity demanded to change in price. Now, whenever you get this question, make sure that you give the definition and the formula. Whether it's asked or not, you should give the formula. Okay, so make sure that you learn the formula, make sure that you put that minus sign. You are writing a proper formula along with the definition, even though it is not asked directly. Next question is Ram and Sham were both traveling by train from Delhi to Chennai and their cost of tickets is different. Why? Give a reason for the railways charging different prices to different customers. So now this is a feature of price discrimination. This feature is practiced by whom? A monopolist. Yes, a monopolist or a single seller of a product. He can do this. He can charge different prices to different consumers. Okay. This practice is called price discrimination. Now, why does he do that? To maximize profits. That is the main reason. Okay, so to maximize his profits, he charges different prices to different consumers. Okay, this is again a good question. So just pay attention that you should write the whole thing, that what feature are we talking about and what is the reason for that to maximize profits. Okay, next question is under what conditions does the supply of good exhibit unitary elasticity? Practically, they are asking us the definition of unitary elastic supply. Now, basically, the relationship between price and supply is a direct one. Unitary elasticity of supply refers to a situation when the percentage change in quantity supplied of a commodity is exactly equal to the percentage change in its price. And I would highly recommend give a diagram where the supply curve is starting from origin. This is the reason you need to make sure that your diagram is also clear and also give the formula that your coefficient of elasticity of supply is equal to 1, which is percentage change in quantity supplied by percentage change in price of a commodity. That's the condition of unitary elasticity. So practically when we say that, let's say the price has risen by 10%, the supply of the commodity will also rise by 10%. I hope this is clear. Next, now we start with section B. Section B is long answers. So when we are doing section B, obviously you have 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. So out of these, you have to do any 4. Now, one mistake don't make that you are choosing one question from here, another question from here, and in total you are doing. Make sure that you are making a choice between full question 5, question 6, like that. Okay, it's important to make sure that you don't make these silly mistakes. Okay, now let's discuss question 5. With the help of a graph, explain the increase in demand concept. Now, this is another important topic you will come across. You will definitely get a question either on extension or contraction of demand or increase or decrease in demand. For this, you can watch another video where I have covered that in detail, how to recognize whether it's increase in demand, decrease in demand, movement or shift. I don't want to spend that time here. That's a concept. But make sure that when you are doing this type of question, they have already asked you a graph. So graph is necessary. Always try to explain the concept. What is increase in demand? What do you mean by that? So increase in demand is when there is increase in demand due to factors other than price. Yes, like suppose the income of the consumer changes or the taste and preference can lead to that. So you need to explain all that, and you also need to give a graph, which is again demand curve shifting to the right. You need to show, that's sure. So please make sure that you're not making this mistake and you cover both clearly. Another thing you can give here is a table also. So where you are showing simple table as price is not changing, let's say 5, quantity is 10, price remains 5, but quantity has shifted to 20. So this is again a case of increase in demand. So you can keep these things in mind. So if you know the concept, you will be able to do it. Next question is explain any 5 demerits. Now, whenever you get demerits, advantages, or any type of 5, so it means they are looking for a subheading as well. So make sure that you write a small subheading and then explain, because subheadings do carry marks. Okay, so in case you're short of time and you have written just the subheading, at least you will get something there. So make sure that you write the subheading. Now, there are very many demerits of direct taxes. They could be unpopular, people could evade them, they may not pay them in time. There could be, because taxes are higher, direct taxes are practically taxes on our income. They can have adverse effect on our motivation to work, because if you're paying higher taxes, you don't feel motivated to work. It could be arbitrary nature. Every other government is trying to fix a different rate of tax, which may not have any basis. Okay, it is inconvenient for people to pay. So all these are different demerits of direct taxes. Make sure that you write the subheading and explain a good reason for that. Next question is question 6. Define a market. Now, when we are doing define a market, again, you have a definition. You need to pay attention to that definition. Just write the definition completely and your answer is correct. So what is market? A market is a place where parties can gather, where the buyers and sellers can gather together, can meet together to facilitate the exchange of goods and services. Now, make sure that you are covering all the keywords here. Second part of the same question is explain any 3 features of a monopolistic market. Now, when you are doing market forms, I always ask students to keep different examples in their head. Okay, so you have mainly perfect competition, monopoly, monopolistic, oligopoly. The easiest way to remember which market we are talking about, keep one example. So for monopoly, like railways. Perfect competition could be your airline tickets, your vegetable market, where you have identical products, identical produce, and people have to make choice. Okay, there are many other examples, but these are just 1 or 2 examples you can keep in your head. Then it becomes easier for you to differentiate and not get confused. Your monopolistic competition would be your shampoos, soaps, toothpaste, where you have slightly differentiated products. And oligopoly, you can always keep car industry in mind. So when they're asking us monopolistic market, you will have large number of sellers, large number of buyers. Product differentiation would be the feature of this. Another important feature in this market would be advertisement or selling cost. Now, I always advise children that you should pay attention to the main features. So when you have, let's say, 7, 8 points, pay attention to the main ones. The first 3, 4 ones are usually the most important ones. It gives a good impression. It also tells the examiner that you know your concepts well. So in this type of question, I would go for large number of buyers and sellers, product differentiation, and selling cost, because these are specific features to this type of market. There are other features which you will find common in different markets. So I would recommend to go for those type of features. Next question is list any 5. Again, one more thing, when you're doing these 3 features, subheading and then explain. It will benefit you. List any 5 important duties of a consumer. Now, this is a general question. Even if you don't remember from the textbook, you can write it in your own words. So basically, what will be your 5 duties? You can think of different duties as a consumer. You should keep the bills with you. You should check the warranty of the product. So as a you should do research before going to the market of the various price products available. You should check online. So keep those practical things in mind, but write in complete sentences in your answer so that it's clear to the examiner what you're trying to talk about. Now let's discuss question 7. What is the meaning of inflation? Now please note that here it's a 5 marker, and In the second part of the question, they're asking us 3 evil effects. So probably this question is for 2 marks and this is for 3 marks. So when you're writing A part, what is the meaning of inflation? You need to write 2-3 sentences in detail, okay? Like you need to explain it properly. So what is inflation? Inflation refers to a sustained or persistent increase in the general level of prices of goods and services in an economy over a period of time. This is the complete definition. The keywords are sustained or persistent. It has to be a persistent increase in prices and it has to be in the prices of overall goods and services. You cannot say that the increase in the price of onion in a month means there is inflation in the economy. And you can also include sentences like it means that the purchasing power of money decreases, or each unit of money can now buy fewer goods and services. So that will be your answer to the first question. Second question is explain any 3 evil effects of inflation on production. Make a note of this word, on production. They are not asking us effects of inflation on general economy. So don't include points on consumers, on farmers, on debtors. We are not talking about those. We are only talking about evil effects of inflation on production. So you have advantages, you have good effects, you have evil effects. So good effects could be that if there is inflation in the economy, producer is motivated to produce because he can earn more profit per unit. What would be the evil effect? Evil effect is it could be misallocation of resources. How? Now, in this case, what happens if there is inflation, if the prices of goods are rising, the producer could divert his production from essential to non-essential goods. Okay, non-essential means goods which are our comfort, for our luxury. Now, if there is inflation, producer can charge higher profits in the sale of luxury goods. They may shift to the production of non-essential goods. Second is that it can lead to hoarding, because producers, what they like to do, they know that the prices are increasing, profit per unit is going to increase, they can hoard goods right now, they can create artificial scarcity. Okay, so that is another evil effect. The third could be, so second is hoarding. Third could be that it can lead to fall in quality. So producers are more concerned about fall in quality. Producers are more concerned about producing numbers, producing more quantity of goods, and they tend to sacrifice quality in this case, okay, because they're concentrated on earning higher profits. There is wastage of resources. There are one or two more effects, so you can explain any 3 properly. This question on differentiate between commercial and central bank, it's directly given in the tabular form in your textbooks. So I don't need to repeat the answer. Basically, you have to talk about the central bank. There is only one commercial bank. There are many in the country. Central bank has authority of note issue. Commercial banks don't have. Commercial banks work for profit. Central bank works as a service bank. So all these things, they cater to the government, act as an agent. So these are easy points. You just need to be clear. Don't mix up the points and write them in the tabular form. Question 8 is differentiate between extension and contraction of demand. Again, I have a video on this. I'm going to share the link for that video in the description box below. Okay, movement versus shift in demand curve. Now, when you get this type of a question as a 5 marker, make sure that diagram is there, schedule or table is there, the definition is there, what are the, where price is affecting, where factors other than price are affecting. So everything should be there, probably in a tabular form. Okay, always better to differentiate in a tabular form. Second question is state the law of supply. Now this is law of supply. Law of supply, we know that as the price of a commodity rises, the supply also rises, or vice versa, provided other factors affecting supply remain constant. So you have to make sure that you are writing the whole law properly. And then they are asking you again, because it will be a 2 marker, I would Just draw a simple diagram. That's always good. Okay, it takes 2 seconds to draw a freehand simple diagram, but it matters. Then you have 3 factors affecting elasticity of supply. You can also give a function here, okay, law like supply function if you want. So I would advise, if you have time, please give. Then you have explained 3 factors affecting elasticity of supply. Please go through the description of these factors carefully. Children, do understand. Again, one thing please note, here they are asking you law of supply. Here they are asking you factors affecting elasticity of supply. Don't start writing here factors affecting supply. This is factors affecting elasticity of supply. So when you are doing elasticity of supply factors, there are factors which are confusing there. Okay, so like the description of them is, it can be sometimes confusing. Read the description carefully. Okay, what you are trying to say, what do you mean? So you need to be very thorough in those. So pay attention to what is being asked. Don't get confused. Let's start giving factors affecting supply here. So I hope you know I'm not again going to discuss these. These are in your textbooks. So just pay attention to them. Next question is, what is the meaning of consumer price index? Now, this is another question which usually you may find in latest papers, because these are recent changes which the council has made. So pay attention to these definitions also. What is the meaning of consumer price index? Again, it's a definition. It will be 2 marks. So write it carefully. It is a metric used to measure inflation in India, let's say. It's a key economic indicator which will examine the average change in prices paid by consumers for a basket of goods and services over time. So write a complete concept. Then you have mentioned any 3 objectives of GST. Okay, so now again, there are many objectives here. You just need to explain any 3. So any 3, and mention means they are expecting you to write in a line. Okay, so complete sentences. Don't just write phrases here. Don't just write 3-4 words here. Write a complete sentence. So like, so for example, if I say that one of the primary objectives of GST is to widen the tax base in India. So it's a complete sentence, it's clear. Second is, I can say that it helps to create a common market in India with a uniform taxation system and to curb tax evasion in the country. So like that, you need to write at least, you have to write 3 objectives of GST. Next question is, what is the meaning of consumer exploitation? Now they're asking you consumer exploitation meaning. So just in general terms, general words, you can write that it is when a seller takes advantage of a consumer or group of consumers for their own benefit. How can they do that? Basically by supplying defective goods, adulterated goods, or they could be using false scales, false weighing scales, okay, false advertisement, or they are charging the prices which were not displayed earlier. All these these are different ways how the consumer can be exploited. So when you are writing this, again write a sentence and give 3-4 examples of how can they do it. Then only it's a complete answer, because again it could be, now here it's not clear which answer is how much, but probably this is again 2 marker and these are 3 marks for rights of consumers. When you are talking about 3 rights, again this is a simple question for you, but you need to do. Now consumer awareness chapter is also very important. You will definitely get questions from there. So you have right to safety, right to choose, right to be heard, right to seek redressal. Pay attention to the punctuation when you're writing these subheadings. Explain each right in a line. It's important. Okay, so you cannot change the subheadings here. You cannot write something in your own words. That right is legally how it has to be written. Pay attention to those where capital alphabets should be there. All those things matter in this question. Okay, so when you're writing 3 rights, make sure that you are writing the subheadings properly. Last question is question 10. Explain the determinants of individual demand. Individual demand is easy. Yes, price of related goods, income of the consumer, taste and preference. All these are your individual demand. What factors affect a consumer as an individual? Okay, so pay attention. Don't write your market demand factors here. So you have to explain. Determinants means factors. So determinants or factors, practically they are asking us to write. So again, you write 5, explain them. Now we have come to the last question. Read the extract and answer the following. Shruti and her friends have an idea to start selling makeup kits. Idea means we are talking about entrepreneurs. They already have saved money for the merchandise. So it means capital is being talked about. Since they all own the company, they will work for free. It means labor being provided is free. First question is name the factor of production which is not mentioned. The factor of production not mentioned is land. The extract mentions capital, labor, entrepreneurship, all that is there, but land is not being mentioned here. So please make sure that you are able to choose the correct factor of production. Next question is explain any 4 features or characteristics of the above factor of production. So here you are supposed to give 4 features of land. Free gift of nature, it is limited in supply, it varies, it has many uses, it's a primary factor of production, it's a passive factor of production. Actually, those will be good features here. Primary, passive, limited in supply, free gift of nature, it's permanent, immovable. So these are features. Make sure that you write the features and not the functions. Many children make mistakes between features or functions, especially in this chapter. So when you are preparing, I would highly recommend, I don't have time to make another video, though someone had asked me to do that. I would highly recommend make a table like this, okay, for 4 factors of production. So land, labor, like a mind map kind of thing, capital, entrepreneurship, and then you can write features for land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship, and then functions for land, labor, and capital. So this way, your brain will be able to help you in retaining the information if you have learned it in a certain way. I know there are some parts which we need to rote learn, but that is how it is. I hope this video was helpful. If you like my video, kindly share and subscribe. Wish you all the very best for your board exam. Bye.